Hello. While we were still busing to work before COVID hit, I was listening to my music every day on the bus to and from work. And I originally had the wired earbuds, and there were a number of incidents that occurred, such as the wires getting caught in things and just about losing my phone, etc. And I was looking for a reasonable solution, and I ended up finding the AirPods. I thought that the fit was one of the best in my ears, most comfortable, etc. And so when Apple introduced the AirPods back in 2016, I grabbed a pair fairly quickly. And they were really, really great. I really enjoyed them, but I had to attend a conference call. Luckily, I was able to do that at my desk, so I was able to continue working while I was on the conference call. And I didn't want to have to hold a cell phone to my ear for the better part of 2 hours. So I opted to use my personal phone, which at the time I had lucked out and got unlimited talk time, and the AirPods that I had were already paired with that phone. But I was surprised at how quickly the right AirPod earpiece had cut out. And that got me thinking about trying to figure out how much battery capacity was left in them. At that point, I already had them for a few years, and I was using them quite a bit just about every day. It was already around that time that Apple had just introduced their battery health dashboard in their phone. It gives an overall battery capacity health for the phone, but unfortunately it did not provide additional information for the AirPods. So I took the opportunity to create a spreadsheet and start recording the battery levels at certain intervals and to make a nice little graph. And so for day one, this is what it looked like. The spreadsheet that I did use at the beginning was very different, but I was able to take the values that I had previously recorded and transferred them to this new spreadsheet that I just created a few days ago. So while I was at work on a nice quiet day, I got my phone to chime in every something like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I would just go and get the current charge readings for each of the AirPods along with how much time was elapsed and put them into the spreadsheet, and it gave me a nice looking graph like that. I noticed over time that the discharge rates were fairly uneven. They would discharge at what appeared to be a fairly linear rate, and then they would reach some kind of plateau or shelf and continue at that rate for some time and before the percentage started to drop again. I don't know if that's a function of the firmware that measures the battery level or if it is really the battery that is discharging at an inconsistent rate, being that it's an older battery. But as you can see, I've had a fair number of days of measuring the discharge rates for my AirPods. And so I had decided I was going to create a new spreadsheet that I can make available. So check the description below. You should find a link to this one, which is just going to be a template that you can use for your own purposes. I'm going to go through each of these fields shortly, but it doesn't have to be used just for AirPods. There's obviously two of them, one for the left, one for the right, but you could use it for just about anything that has up to two. So you could use it, let's say, if you have a remote control car, or if you have a drone, or just about any device that has a lithium ion battery might benefit. So this spreadsheet might be useful for just about anything that has a lithium ion battery. The only thing that you really need to keep in mind when you're doing these tests is to keep a fairly consistent drain rate. So there's two basic modes that you can use when you're tracking the charge of the batteries. You can write the values down on a piece of paper, for example. Let's say you're out in the field and you're doing some kind of test. You take the battery level measurements at regular intervals, write it down, let's say on a piece of paper along with the time. These cells calculate the minutes elapsed from a past event. So in one case, I went for a walk. I took a screenshot after opening the lid, and I also took another one when I took one of them out of the case, and then it decided to show the battery level for each individual in this little window. So in this case here, both of them were charged at 100%, and it happened to be at 4:35 p.m. When my watch told me that I had gone 1 kilometer, I took a screenshot of what the battery levels were, and in this case it said that the battery level was at 85%. And I know that the right earpiece drains faster than the left, and the difference in the battery levels is not enough for the phone to tell me what the levels are for each of them. So in this case, I don't know what the battery level was for the left earpiece. I only knew what it was for the right piece. And so here I wrote down 85% after 12 minutes. So here's 85% at 4:47. So since I started my walk at 4:35 p.m., so at 4:47 p.m. it was 12 minutes. So in this case, I put a value in these two fields. A little while later, I took another reading and it was at 72%, and later still it was 59%, and in this case at 5:32 it was at 52 and 33. So at 5:32 it was 52 and 33, so I had put 57 minutes here, so I put the values in these three here, and I kept going until the right earpiece cut out, and so I marked it down as at 0% here. So here it was at 1%, and here it kicked off. So at this point here, I only had the left side to continue to measure. I was still out on my walk at this point, so I put the right earpiece back in the charger, and by the time I got home and did a few things around the house, the right earpiece was recharged enough. I put it back in my ear so that I could have the stereo effect again, and I continued like this until it finally kicked off. So here you can see the left earpiece kind of leans off to the right, and the right earpiece leans off to the left, and the left one had cut off. So at 7:46 the left earpiece had enough and was drained. So 7:46 was 191 minutes, and I had put 0% here, just like I put 0% at 96 minutes. The minutes past column is in a situation where you may have to be interrupted for some reason. So let's say you're testing your earpods at work and somebody comes and interrupts you. What you can do is pause the music, talk to them. When the meeting is over, you figure out how much time had elapsed, and you could turn around and say, oh, well, I was interrupted for 4 minutes in this case. And what that will do is it will subtract this value from this value, and these are the number of minutes that the device was in use. The cells that are in yellow are cells where it's expected you could put some values in directly. So if you're measuring in real time, so for example, right now it's 2:52 p.m., more like 2:53. So I would go, and it will calculate the time elapsed. So if I started listening to my music 10 minutes ago, I'd probably be somewhere around here. Then it calculates 10 minutes, and I would put 10 minutes here. This is if you're doing something right there, and you can enter it directly into the spreadsheet. If you are recording events separately, such as taking screenshots as I've shown, or let's say maybe writing the values on a piece of paper, you could use this column as a reference to calculate the number of minutes. In this case, Apple claims that brand new Airpods should give you 5 hours of listening music, which is 300 minutes. So you would put that value in there. If I do get another pair of Airpods, I will do a full drain test to confirm what the maximum is for that pair when they were brand new, as opposed to estimating what they were brand new. The values you see in this kind of bluish turquoise, whatever color that is, that represents values that are calculated and are mainly for your reference. minutes. Every time you make tests, you should check to see that the battery is drained completely to get a full estimate. As you can see, they don't drain in a linear fashion. They do tend to be all over the place. And if you cut it off over here, this drain slope will miss some of these minutes of capacity that remained. In this case here, you can see that at the time, the estimated maximum time was 165 minutes because I had stopped it when the left was at 40 and the right was at 10. If I went back, that would probably represent maybe a week. It was closer to 62 minutes for the one and 102 for the other. This one was more indicative of the battery's capacity. The right was at 145 minutes and the left was at 222 minutes. So if you cut it off, let's say maybe here, you can see that the left was slightly lower than the 222. These cells are useful for estimating how much time there's left while it's discharging, but keeping in mind that while it's discharging, it is not going to be an accurate reading until it has finally completed its discharge cycle, and that's where these two cells come in. Right around here was when we started to go into lockdown, and so I hadn't used the AirPods probably in at least a year and a half. They were sitting in the house. I just decided to start using them again when I went for walks. I had taken these two values from the one discharge cycle and put them in here for the next one, and that gave me a comparison between the two discharge cycles that told me that the second one for the 27th turned out to give me 5 minutes more of listening on the left side, and the right side was the same as before. And in this case, the next day, the left gave me an extra 6 minutes compared to the previous, but now the right gave me an extra 2. And if we keep going like this, you can see sometimes you gain, sometimes you lose. And on yesterday's test, the battery capacity is calculated by the total drain time for this test divided by the brand new battery capacity time of 300 minutes, and that gave me a 63% capacity as then if it was new. This is the maximum of these two. While you're conducting your drain test, this one gives you an estimate of how much time is left, keeping in mind that these cells will have different values as the tests continue. And last but not least, you've got the nice pretty scatter plot over here that you can see the discharge curve. The right one discharged fairly linearly until it got to 1%. And as opposed to some of the previous days where it simply cut off, just using the AirPods again after a period of dormancy seems to have somehow regained a small amount of capacity left at around the 1% mark, and it sort of did a bit of a hockey stick kind of curve before finally cutting off. And it'll be interesting to see how this looks after a few more drain cycles. But that's basically the long and the short of it. Once again, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you did like this video, I would appreciate the thumbs up, and feel free to comment below. If you like my content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again in another video soon enough. So bye for now.